Oh, I might have not been close enough. You would think I would know by now. Um, so yeah, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on. You know, I know you as the cultural icon of books, right? Anytime I think about books,
Oh
I,
wow.
I
Thanks.
think of Miss Ife, and I'm like, man, I need to read that, and I need to read that.
Okay. Thank you.
But how? I guess for you, how did you come to this place of, you know, fostering and mentoring young people and sharing a love for literature and really bringing community together to talk about these tomes?
Well, it started with the passion for reading and passion for literature,
Mm.
um, and and wanting to do something to highlight literature of the African diaspora.
Mm.
So I worked over the years for most of the arts organizations in New Haven.
Hey.
Actually, I don't think a lot of people realize that. But I have worked at the Arts Council, at Long Wharf, at the Schubert,
uh,
uh, coordinated a project for the Yale Drama School, all the things. International Festival of Arts and Ideas.
no, you said everything. You
Always,
meant it.
I'm serious. I work for every arts organization in some capacity, whether it was like community liaison, volunteer coordinating. Um, but everywhere I was like pulled together events and try to get not try work to get um, exposure to the arts for Black community. I grew up in New Haven and um, just in the time of the Black Panthers
Mm.
and consciousness. Glad I'm a child of the 60s, 70s, and saw that and like was a child but experienced a lot of that. Um, I always like to talk about my two grandmothers who were community activists
Hey.
in their Annie Huckabee in Newhallville.
Hey.
She has a corner on the corner of Reed and Newhall. It's Annie Huckabee Corner. She lived on Reed Street for over 50 years. And my other grandmother was Hattie Turner. She was a liaison for the New Haven Police Department. Um, a, uh, it was I forgot what the exact title was called, but they both from both of my grandmothers' um, involvement and me being their oldest grandchild, so I got to see and experience a lot of what they did. And I have aunts. My mother's sisters were teachers,
Hey.
and they always gave us books, instilled a passion for that for me. Um, so yeah, so I always had a passion for books, and and I didn't discover like really get into Black literature till I was almost in middle or high school.
Mm.
Um, and then when I did, it was voracious. I went to HBCU at Morgan State. I attended Morgan State University.
Hey.
Um, so and it was mostly my adult life that I got really delving into more and more of Black literature, African American literature, and looking at um, all the writers and all the contributions
Mm.
of this arts of the African diaspora. Period. So from all of that culminating in working in all these spaces, in addition to also working in social services, um, I've just had so many jobs. It's like people my age are retiring from one thing, and I'm like, oh God, I didn't stay nothing that long. And it was by choice. It was like, oh, I want to do that or I want to do that.
Mm.
Oh, you know, those something like things like that. But I was away. I was living in New York. Moved back here in 2018 to take care of my mom,
Mm.
and I was approaching my 60th birthday, and was not going to. It's like, New Haven is going through an art. The greater New Haven area is going through an arts renaissance,
Mm.
and it was a good time to be back in the arts, and I wanted to be involved in some kind of way. So I was like, you know what? We don't have a book festival, so I'm gonna do a book festival, just like that.
Wow. Oh.
And so, because of my relationship with, and I was also years ago on the Cultural Affairs Commission for New Haven, and I'm glad to say that again, um, just appointed this year again for the Cultural Affairs Commission. So there's relationships that I've had over the years, and so um, yeah, started Lit Fest, came up with the idea of let's do a Black Book Festival. It's going Elm City Lit Fest, and um, and to celebrate and show everyone the significance and the contributions of literary arts of the African diaspora, because people hear the names
Mm.
of the authors of James Baldwin, of Zora Neale Hurston, and even of these wonderful modern day writers. There are some great writers. Um, and unless they're like, and there's also, unless people are like on New York Times list, everybody don't know about them, but there's a lot of good writers. So, yeah, wanted to give local, regional, and global authors of color an opportunity to have exposure and to expose everybody to them.
No, that is you know, e- being a son of the 90s, right? New Haven is very much different, and to read about the past of New Haven and then think about the present, there's just so much that has been erased, but that we can find through literature. And one of my favorite books, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was amazed to learn that he was a guest lecturer here at Yale for a time, and it just, that connection of books where I'm like, hold on, like these stories. I'm like, some of these stories might have been from here on these streets, the places that we share.
Exactly. And it's interesting that where the what I call Yale the plantation of New Haven, or New Haven the plantation of Yale, however you want to think of it, because there's so many people that are from New Haven that work at Yale,
Mm.
and there are resources at the university that are hidden, that are not always like, there's some people that share. I'm not saying everybody doesn't share the resources or the opportunities. Like, I want to say, when I when I was starting Lit Fest, and going around having meetings with folks and letting folks know about it, and I had a meeting, and I found out that, like, Roxanne Gay was guest lecturer
Mm.
for that year or semester, whatever. And and like you said, Ralph Allison was here, right? And so there's sometimes they bring in, whether it's literary or otherwise, they bring in folks that are known, and the community doesn't know they're here, right? Their lectures, sometimes they have talks or events that are open to the public, but unless you are tapped in,
Mm.
you don't know about that. So it's a control kind of thing, right? So they keep the people in the bubble. So my initial thing was, when I started Lit Fest, if y'all got somebody coming,
Come through.
you know, can I get an hour at Lit Fest or something like that? But because the assumption because of the assumption of the Yale, some of the Yale folks, that New Haven always, somebody from New Haven always comes in looking for something. Before I even got that request in, I was told, well, we don't have no money. You should go to, have you been over to the Stetson? I grew up in Dixville behind the Stetson. I know Diane Brown because I grew up with her.
Hey,
Like, so
also no money.
why are you telling me?
$30 billion.
Well, it was initially, I had raised, I knew I have in my lifetime, because I work for nonprofits, had to write a couple of grants. So I had a little bit of funds up there. So, but my thing was, if somebody is already here,
Facts.
in, that you're paying already, can I get an hour of their time?
Facts.
Right? Have them come and do something at, this is my first year, and like combined with Lit Fest. Like, have them do a workshop or a panel or just a talk about their book, or do a book signing, something like that at Lit Fest. And it was met with, like, like I said, Justin, first I had a meeting scheduled with some people. I ain't gonna name them. And I got there a little early, and I had to wait because they had other things. And by the time they got to me, and I had my little proposal with like, this is what I'm doing, yada yada yada. It's like, oh, this is great, but we don't have any money. Have you been over to the library? It's like, I said, I didn't come here for money. I came here for a resource. If you know of someone that does something, then I started emailing people within Yale, because at the time I did work part-time at Yale. So I started emailing people within, and then, anybody paying attention to my little book festival that just started, right? So it's okay. I've been to books, and I have, and the other reason I want to do a book festival, because I love them. Like, I am book nerd, okay? So I'm going to, my goal is to create, have the Elm City Lit Fest be as big as the Brooklyn Book Festival is, as the Boston Book Festival is, as, like, there's so many book festivals across the country, Miami, and I've been to Brooklyn. Well, I lived in Brooklyn, so I went to the Brooklyn one, Harlem Book Festival, all them. So that's what I want to create. The whole Harlem Book Festival, they closed down 100 and the Lexington, 135th Street from Lexington Avenue all the way to 8th Avenue, which is like about 5 city blocks.
That's huge.
They have along the way a lot of vendors and entertainment, children's stages or readings, things like that. So that, my vision was that. It is that, right? And the Brooklyn Book Festival takes over the whole downtown Brooklyn. And also, and then there's the Boston Book Festival, which is up, takes over a big square up there. I forgot where it is. But between or before and after the Boston and the Brooklyn Book Festival, people could be at the Elm City Lit Fest, right? That's the goal, to be as big and get the authors that come in thin. So yeah, but flash forward to our 4th year, which is our past year, we were in collaboration with a literary conference that was happening at the African American Studies Department, which went very well. They were doing literature, romance fiction, the Literature of Hope conference. So we were able to collaborate with them, and we collaborated in addition with the Jamaican American Connection.
Okay.
So, for just like, but it wasn't hard with the Jamaican American Connection. But Yale this year, I mean,
you don't know.
They came to us at 4 years later, right? And said, so now I could go back to that office that does have the money and say, well, we did this collaboration last year. You got a couple of dollars now, okay? Because we're bigger and better. And I'm grateful. I'm just
Mm,
grateful because I understand that we live in a space. New Haven is a big town, little city. And I understand that we live in a space that people have to see it to believe it, right? It's like, what is that movie where the guy said he gonna build a baseball field in the middle of a cornfield, and they will come, you know. So I want to say in our fourth year now they will come. They have been coming because this was our biggest one, and we did it at the
mm.
library.
For those of y'all who are just joining us, you're listening to Just in Time Conversations, WNHHFM 103.5. Talking with Miss Ife about Lit Fest and about all the great things of literature. Um, you know, I have not read much of Baldwin, right? Um, and there's so many amazing authors. And so what made you decide to put on this anniversary event of 100 years of Baldwin?
Well, August 2nd is his birthday.
Hey,
So he'll be 100 years old, and one of my introductions um to I fell in love with the Black Renaissance writers, with
mm,
Langston Hughes and
hey,
Zora Neale Hurston, and classics like um, County Cullen, Nella Larson, like a lot of the Harlem Renaissance writers and the writers that came through that and through that era struggle. Lorraine Hansberry, who
hey,
her first her premiere was at the Schubert, right?
oh,
She wrote uh, an essay to be young, gifted, and black while when Raisin in the Sun was premiering at the Schubert before it went on Broadway. The Schubert is called
oh,
the Schubert because the Schubert brothers built something like that. That because all the Broadway shows used to premiere at the Schubert in New Haven before they went to Broadway. If they made it in New Haven, then it was like boom, we we'll take it to Broadway, right? So she was in Taft Hotel, and she wrote an essay, but and she was good friends with Baldwin. Um, James Baldwin has a range of work in essays.
mm,
Like I would advise you to, if if you're not familiar with a lot of his writings, to start with his essay work. Um, we're going to premiere the film "I Am Not Your Negro"
hey,
at um, at the Miller Mitchell in Westville. Miller is in Hampton, right?
yeah,
Mitchell, the Mitchell Library. Sorry, Marion Huggins. Um, on January 29th,
hey,
um, with a discussion about that, the film and the book. So encourage everybody to come out to that. But James Baldwin's quotes about racism
mm,
and oppression. I mean, he was a black gay man who was very so intense and poignant in so many ways in all his stories. Um, if Beale Street Could Talk, I mean, it's a love story, but it's a struggle in there. The, I, I I can't even explain like the range of his work. Then he has, um, to me, there's a love story in there, but it's also toxic. But it's also about people's struggles. Is Giovanni's Room.
yeah,
Um, shoot, I can't now. I can't. I'm going blank on all the things, but he has a lot of. And what I would advise is like read his essays, and and hear his and just hear him talk, his interviews on YouTube about race. Like like people ask
Facts.
just ridiculous questions about race, like what they're wondering about, and it's the '60s, bro. Well, like, what are you talking about? So yeah, that's why um, I feel like the messages within his work were timeless enough that we cannot forget. Um, these things are not new, and there are things that we can learn about to how to move within this thing, move within this oppressive kind of, not kind of, this oppressive society that we have it,
Facts.
we in it. You know, it's an oppressive society that people don't realize how racist they are. They really don't, and they have to be called on it a lot of times. It gets weary, and then not that everybody does. Some people do know. They clear,
I can
and
appreciate that.
we are resilient. We are resilient people that we cope by in different ways of how we got to deal with it as well. You know, everybody doesn't want to see it, right? Those are the people that say, "Oh, I've never experienced any racism," but then you still get followed around the store. I like, whenever it hasn't happened in a while, but when I have gotten followed around a store, especially a clothing store, they turn into my personal shopper. Oh, you want to follow me, bitch? Excuse me. Sorry, Harry. Um, you gonna, like, okay, hold this, hold this. I give them a whole bunch of stuff, and then okay, we can. I want to try everything on. You with me?
How look?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I will get on your nerves. Oh, you want to follow me? You gonna be my personal shopper. That's how I deal with it. You know, even in the grocery store. Oh, you paying for these groceries?
Let me find out.
What would you recommend?
Like, I
I
was.
know I will pause and stop, have a conversation. Come with me. Follow. You want to follow me through this? You gonna work for it.
I think Well, before I say this, Babs says, "Hey Ife, 3 heart emojis and 3 Christmas trees." So,
And I will see you singing in the hood tonight.
hey,
We're doing Christmas carols.
oh, okay.
Babs is doing tonight and Thursday at 6 p.m. at 75 Ivy Street.
Hey.
Her annual Chris. She just started it last year, but and people need to start it in their own neighborhoods and
Facts.
stop asking Babs to be all over town. You got a neighborhood, you live in it. Come on now, just start a movement. Like, that's the other thing. Like, folks be like, "How did you do that? How you like? How did you start this book festival?" I just wanted it to.
Happen.
I just wanted it to happen. Like, and I went to the Arts Council first, and at the time, Dan Fitzmaurice was there, so I wanted to do this book festival, and I have a vision for it. And actually, it was 2019, 19 when I started planning it.
Mm-hmm.
First one's supposed to be in May. Oh no, April of 2020.
Oh,
So the first year was virtual. We did do virtual in September, and because and that went over pretty well. That happened. It went pretty well, and so I changed it to the September time because it again, the Brooklyn Book Festival happens in September, and the Boston September October time. So I was like, I could get people coming up that East Coast kind of thing, and authors that are already in the area will come through. And also, I have to give a shout out to Hartford. While I was planning Lit Fest, there's a group in Hartford called the Literary Integrated Trailblazers.
mm,
They are writers and poets and performers that came together and started doing Hartford's Lit.
oh,
So they also, and we use, and again with scheduling, she's either before or they're either before or after Lit Fest. So because um, it's about getting the information to everyone, like collectively, working collectively. It's no competition.
Facts.
You know what I mean? In Connecticut has a literary festival, which is wonderful. It's held at Real Art Ways. Usually, I think in the springtime, and it's most of the literature is very academic. It's a lot of the state schools, people from the state schools that are writers, which is great, and they get local writers too, um, or Connecticut-based writers. So it's nice. It's a good thing. But again, I like we could have a New London Book Festival, Bridgeport Book Festival, like everybody, because as I've been planning in the now 5 years, I've been planning Lit Fest, um, or 6 years. Um, I've been just so many um, local people, so many local regional people living within this state are so talented in
Mm.
writing. And a lot of people are self-published and trying to find ways to put their stuff out there, you know. Um, so yeah, it's been so interesting. And then people also, I heard some things like comments like, "Oh, people don't read anymore." Yes, they do. They just don't tell you sometimes. Or there's a community for everyone. That's how I feel. There's a community for everyone. And the people that usually tell me that are people that don't read because you don't.
No, you know, I one of the things that I appreciate about reading is that you can take it at your own pace. And I've realized that there are times where there are some books I've picked up and just where I was in my life, I wasn't ready to embrace the wisdom that they are ready to put out.
Mm.
And one of the things that I find about, Baldwin and about many others is, when it came to race relations during that time,
What?
people just wrote very honestly.
He had nothing to lose.
There was no fluff. There was no talking around.
And he had nothing to lose, and they always wanted him. All these white interviewers always wanted to talk to him. Him and Maya Angelou and
Mm,
Toni Morrison got more um interview, like they got more requests for. You could YouTube so many interviews that they're on that white people are asking them, why are you feeling this way? Like basically, what is like, you have not walked in my shoes. You have no idea how your people are being to my people. Like, and you're really asking me this? And why not? Like one, and never forget this one interview with Toni Morrison. This woman asked her, "Why are your characters black? What else would they be, girl?" Like,
would you have
but you
asked
would,
that someone
but
else?
you don't ask that to anyone else. You know what I'm saying? And it's to the point where I have met some writers that are people of color or biracial or whatever who say, I don't, I just write characters. I don't give them um, a race. I don't have a, yeah, they're not racial. I don't want people to see color. We all see color. When you see a red light, you stop.
Facts.
When you see a green light, you go. We all see color. It ain't going nowhere. Don't say you don't see color, because you do. We don't want to deal with each other where we are a lot of the time. And when people are real about, you know, it's not for me. I'm not. I feel like I love my culture first.
Hey.
I want to learn about my culture first. I want to have as much of me knowing, and that's what was instilled in me.
Mm,
from my grandmothers and my elders and people within my community. Like we get our we get recharged, we get re-energized, and we get what we need. That's why we have to have duality sometimes, right? And it's okay to be to know yourself first. Nobody questions when um other races have other folks have schools that just teach their children their language
Facts.
in their language or about their traditions.
Facts.
And then we have Kwanzaa, and it's also all of a sudden revolutionary. It's like, oh, what is that? A Black Christmas? Is it this? No.
It's the 26th. Stop playing. Gonna light
And
my canar.
it's a celebration of our culture that came out of a movement and a realization that we don't know enough about ourselves.
Facts.
Because I did have people say, why Black Book Festival? Because we don't know enough about ourselves. And people cannot name, and there are teachers who try, who get it in there, who fit it in when they can, because of now we have an educational system that limits, because they're teaching to test, but it limits how things get integrated. And there are educators that do work hard to integrate their cultural
Or backlashes on that reality,
and backlashes on that reality.
right? I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I remember I found it in high school, just found an old copy.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my teachers, we were reading Ethan Frome or something. I was like, bro, like, this is just not reaching me, right? And I was like, can I read this instead? And to their wisdom, they allowed me to. And that was just so transformative in what I needed at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But the themes and the things and the realities that were taught were true to my community in Newhall, right? And some would say they might not have been appropriate, right? But it was appropriate because of the things that I was taught, the things that I was allowed to ponder upon from a different perspective, from a different time.
Man, in literature over the years, artists have been at the forefront of a lot of revolutions, of a lot of movements, right? And it expands minds because it cracks me. And now I want to say any book, the African diaspora book festival, a Latin book festival, wherever kind of book festival you want to have right now, that's outside of the box. We need, especially with these ignorant states banning books, these ignorant people banning books, the books that they haven't even read, because on some of these banned book lists, they don't have the authors correctly. Like, so you not even looking at the book, you just hearing something. It limits your mind. Like you said, your class was either reading Ethan Frome, you was like, okay, oh, I ain't getting this. Right? And then you read the autobiography of Malcolm X and you're like, wow, okay. And you see that a figure like him had an origin, had a beginning that was similar to how you live it. There are stories that have similarities. There are stories that people can relate to. There's so much that if people only read them. And then the other thing is, when I was little, and when books just take you somewhere else.
Facts.
And it opens up the world to you. If you are, if I feel like holy, like sometimes people can't afford cable, right? Kids ain't got, if you can bring them up in a house of culture. I know There was a couple of times in my life, in my daughter's lifetime, Raven. Um, she's 34. Like there was times where I had to make a choice of a cable bill or food, so we had to do that. But she had a library. I shouldn't say but, and she had a library, and we had the video, the
DV,
VH.
the VHS, the DVDs.
We used to go to Best Video and Best Video had a really good collection um of films, of African American films. I was because I grew up in the 60s, 70s. I don't know why they call them black exploitation, but those films, right? Because some of them were not exploitation.
No.
Okay, because Shaft
Hey,
was a hero.
facts.
He was trying to do some good in his outside of the police department, because he didn't trust the police. They couldn't mess with him, but they wanted to work with him because he had the inside scoop. And at the end of the day, the crooks, he got the crooks for them,
Facts.
right? If you think about, oh my God, one of my best ones is Pam Grier. Pam Grier was a professional. She was a nurse. Coffee Brown. All the Pam Grier movies is about, wait, we got drugs in our neighborhood. What? She's seeing people dying. She's seeing needles. Her brother, somebody, think about, like, nobody, that's not black exploitation.
Mm.
That's us saving us.
Facts.
Getting, like, and I have to give it to Shelley Winters, because she was a white actress that always got messed up in the end in one of those movies. She was always the bad white lady, and there was a few white actors that, like, they got the bottom line was get out of our neighborhoods. And they always had a group of brothers. They didn't say the Black Panthers, but there was a group of them activist brothers that they all had to go to with their guns and get the things happening. And so to flip it and say that's black exploitation, that puts a stigma on it and makes us feel like, oh, no, it wasn't. It was about to me, the messages in those movies were, let's get the origin of the thing out of our neighborhood and clean up and protect ourselves. Like, when people say the Black Panther Party, they don't say the full name. It's the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. When I was growing up and I saw the Black Panther Party at their headquarters or doing anything, it's like, we got breakfast from them, right? People that give you breakfast and take you to school and make sure you got your homework done.
Facts.
Single moms are dropping their kids off so they could go to work and know they got breakfast, right? Them in the Nation of Islam brothers were straight. They were respectful, right? Nobody was right. They made sure that the drug addicts and the drug dealers left us alone. Things like that. Like, nobody thinks of it as the protection part. Whenever it's for us, by us, or it's for our defense, it's sort of as radical, and it's a mindset. So nobody thinks that way.
No, there was much education centered in that.
And
much,
both,
right? Reading
for us and outside of us.
Right. I often think about, as we move forward, what you see podcasts, you see audiobooks, there's more ways to engage
Mm-hmm.
with words than there were before. And so, why is it so important to you, right, to have these opportunities for people to circle around books and to have these reading groups that you have? Like, why is that still important?
Because, like I said earlier, it expands people's minds. It gives you opportunity to think. And I want to give a shout out to Possible Futures, our
Hey.
girl Lauren, who is weekly she exhausted, but she weekly doing a lot to enhance everyone's knowledge of all people's literature,
Mm.
not one against the other. She, there are big independent bookstores overall, because we did an independent bookstore tour on our way to the Library of Congress last weekend. So we stopped in New York and in Philly and in DC,
Hey.
and to other independent bookstores, and each one was different and unique and offered different things and had different audiences, and a lot of the books were the same, and some books were different, and some things were different, but they all served a community, right? Where you see, like, some of them, the ones that offered, like, they had like a coffee shop in them or something, they had people chilling, hanging out, people exchanging ideas, you know and some of them were near universities and some of them were not. But the bottom line is, it brings together community. Like, reading, it enhances all aspects of your life. Your literacy is up, your comprehension of things. Don't just take stuff. Watching TV will wear you out. Like the news, taking things at face value. Because I look at the news, but I also look at the Washington Post and the New York Times and see what they trying to say. Because propaganda is propaganda is propaganda. But because I read a lot of things, I'm not the most brilliant person, but your ideas are shaped by that. If you don't read anything, I really feel like people limit themselves
Mm.
by not at least reading something. Like, to read Octavia Butler or N.K. Jemisin, they write, I don't even want to say science fiction, but like other, so it gives you the possibility of other worlds. You know, all this Marvel movie stuff that we're doing now is out of books, out of comic books
Facts.
that take people. And I say to people all the time, because we also we became culturally lit because we wanted to expand on top of not just Lit Fest, to do other things. And after having a segment of comic and graphic novels in Lit Fest for 2 years, 3 years, we decided to do DiasporaCon,
Mm.
which is a conference, not a convention, but a conference to expose people of color to the opportunities in the graphic novel and comic book industry, because Disney and Marvel and all these places now they use animators. It's graphic designers and animators and people that build stories. If folks didn't start reading something from the beginning, then that wouldn't happen, right? So it's really important. That's why it's important to me to keep this genre going, to keep it going. And happy to know that, independent bookstores like Possible Futures is getting a lot of play. A lot of people want to have their events there, do this or that. And it's like, yeah, but buy some books too. It's a cool space, but get some
Facts.
books too. She got to keep the lights on.
Keeping the lights on. Y'all are listening to Just in Time Conversations, WNHH FM 103.5. Here with Miss Ife, talking about all things books. Um, you shared a little bit about your vision about what you want Litfest to be, to become, to manifest. Um, but can you share about the programming that you do with youth?
Oh, so, well, that's separate, but there's a a place called the Institute Library, that's
Hey.
a membership library Downtown New Haven has been around forever.
Before my time.
Yeah, for both of our time. But I guess back in the day, before there were public libraries, there were membership libraries that were like an old boys network. Old white guys go in there, smoke cigars, drink some bourbon, and read old books, because that's the society that it was back then. That's a, that's a that's a reality. People get mad at the at history, right? You got to get mad at. Look how we evolved from it. Like, we learn things all the time, every century, right? And we got to learn things from that. That's what the way it was back then. We can't change it. We could just change where we going. So anyway, Institute Library, membership library, and there, after the George Floyd incident, when everybody was feeling guilty about seeing something happen for like the
10 billionth time.
10 billionth time, and it felt like they had to do something, and they recognized that their institution was predominantly old white people, um, got together and raised some money for a program called the Social Justice Reader.
Hey.
The program is designed to help high school juniors have something to put on their resume. So they, for 5 months, participate in in the program and create a project around a social justice issue that has something they're passionate about. So if they're passionate about a certain issue, they can. We've had, this is the third year of the project, and they get a stipend for participating. They get a mentor that is a resource for them, and I coordinate everybody through that. Yes, and they get a stipend for their participation. And at the end of the 5 months, they present their project. So yeah, so in this is the third year of that project. And initially, the first year that it was happening, I was a mentor, and it had a little rocky start during that year, because it was just getting off the ground. Everybody was trying to figure out what exactly it would be, as things do when they start out, right? So now we're getting some grounding, and yeah, we have 15 students that applied for the program, and we have 9 students starting in January.
Hey.
Still looking for a couple of mentors, Justin.
The no, I think, you know, these spaces, right? They're bringing people into these spaces, bringing people into spaces and places that share knowledge, that share stories, is so important. And I appreciate you as a person being a facilitator to bring people into places. Um, as as I as I look around, I'm like, man, I figured out this the hard way. I'm like, if I would have known better, I should have just went to Pacific.
Oh no, listen, it's a school of hard knocks, and it's not always. And I have been, because in the times that I worked for the arts organizations that I mentioned earlier, um, there was only a couple of us in the room, if any. So um, that's why I say, like, we need our own spaces to re-energize and recharge, to deal with that, because there's still people going through it now. And I've come to a place too where I create something for me to do
Mm.
with Culturally Lit in Elm City Lit Fest, because it's not always. I'm tired of being the only one in the room. Okay, and it's exhausting, right? I like passing the baton though.
Hey,
Okay, I do. I have a group of young women that work with me. that I love. Okay, and one is Charmaine McAllister, who is rising star
Hey,
of arts administration in New Haven. um, and Juanita
hey,
Austin and Zanaya and Zanaya Leone and Naomi Jones, all wonderful, beautiful, talented young women. And there's so many. I always try to, in every aspect, everything that I do, bring along somebody. Cause I'm 64. I'm be 65 in September,
hey,
and guess who ain't doing this forever? I mean, I like you got to pass things along to another generation. People don't think about when the Black Panthers started. They look at these people now. Like you look at Angela Davis and this. She was like 19, 20 years old. People, when people was in that struggle, Fred Hampton was annihilated at 19. Okay, all these things come from young people and their energy. And then I say to people that like have an expectation of an organization that is not that a white organization or other whatever organization don't have it. If they're not giving you what you need, you create what you need,
mm.
and you create it, and they will come.
Well, as we close out, my favorite question to ask people: what's a song that we can remember y'all by?
A song?
A song, yeah.
Oh Jesus! I like so much music that I can't pinpoint just one.
Give us a person,
So, oh my God.
an album.
Okay, one of my favorite albums is one of my cleaning music album is soundtrack from Claudine.
Mm,
Is a movie that James Earl Jones and Diane Carroll was um, in the 60s. So I say the soundtrack from Claudine.
well, we gotta listen to the soundtrack from Claudine. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
I think
Missy.
it was produced by Curtis Mayfield.
Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming down, and I will be making sure to share out the information for January 29th for the
Mhm.
Baldwin event.
And monthly Baldwin book talks at Possible Futures.
Hey, until next time, let's continue to plant the seeds of change so we can grow together.
I'll be back again. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you wait for me. Hold me like you know I'll never go. Even though you know I will, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. God willing, I'm coming back to you. Baby boo, I'm a traveling man. Moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. God willing, I'm coming back to you. Baby boo, I'm leaving.